Chapter 251. Jonathan as a friend in need. When all were in the house, and Mary had also convinced herself that even her clothes cabinet and that of Eudokia were wholly plundered, the tears came into her eyes as well as Eudokia's, and she complained to Joseph, "Just look here. Even the dress which I had in the temple has been robbed by wicked people. Truly, this really upsets and hurts me in my heart. We had only as few clothes as we absolutely needed, and still we had to lose even those. For that matter, may everything be offered up to the Lord, but it pains me all the same because it was all I had for a necessary change of clothes. And that really hurts me. But it hurts me still more that the wicked thieves have also taken the underclothing of the little child. He now has nothing but the little shirt which he is wearing. How will I now be able to provide him with a second one? Oh, my poor little child. See, now I will not be able to put a fresh little shirt on you every day, which always made you feel so good." Here Jonathan, deeply touched, went over and said, "O most honoured, more than blessed mother of my Lord, do not mourn, for now I also have gold and silver. With the greatest joy, I will indeed give it to you to the last stater, and you can then use it according to your needs. I do of course well know that the Lord of all glory does not look upon my gold and silver, for he who clothes all the animals and all the trees and plants so magnificently will all the less allow the mother of his body to become naked. But just the same, it would make me happy beyond measure if I could bring all of my wealth to you as an offering. Oh, Mother, accept it from my heart." Here Mary looked at Jonathan in a most friendly manner and replied, "Oh, Jonathan, how big-hearted and noble you are! Your will counts as the deed with me. And if it should be pleasing to the Lord, I would indeed ask you for some support for the little child. But if for some reason it should not be pleasing to the Lord, I have already received everything from your heart, for which I shall never cease to be grateful to you." Here the little child came up and said to Jonathan, "Dear Jonathan, give mother what she asks of you, and you will receive a great reward in my kingdom. You see, we are really poor now, and that all the more, since I must not work any wonder because of the salvation of mankind." At this Jonathan ran home full of joy, and in a very short time brought all his gold and silver and laid it at Mary's feet. When Mary and Joseph saw this, both wept for joy. Jonathan wept with them, and could not thank God enough that he was worthy of such grace from the Lord. Hereupon the little child blessed Jonathan and said to Mary, "See, that will surely provide us with fresh linen, so be of good cheer again." And all became happy and cheerful again. Chapter 252. James tells of God's wonders in all things. While this was going on, Joseph's sons took care of the livestock, milked the cows and the she-goats, and this time obtained an unusually large quantity of the richest milk. When they were finished with this, 2 of them went on an acre of fully ripened wheat, and cut several sheaves, and rubbed them until they soon had a heaping basket full of the purest wheat from the cut sheaves. Then the 2 other brothers promptly took the basket with the pure wheat, put it into 2 hand grinders, which Joseph had made himself, and in a short time ground up the grain. And through the Lord's blessing, they won twice as much flour as had just been grain in the basket. Now all this work was completed in 3 hours, and when the flour stood in 2 baskets in the sun, Joseph came outside and asked the sons from whence they had won this beautiful flour. And when the sons told him how they had won this flour, he looked over the rubbed-out sheaves and asked, "How is that possible? I see only 10 sheaves. Should these really have filled these 2 large baskets full of flour?" And the sons answered, "Yes, Father, so it is. By the grace of God we have won this flour in a truly short time from the 10 sheaves. And the blessing of God was on the sheaves and on our work, hence this rich gain." Thereupon Joseph gave thanks in utmost humility, went back into the house and told everyone in the house about it. And all went outside and looked at the flour, and each declared, "That is impossible, altogether impossible by natural means." Here James, in response to an inward prompting, picked up a kernel of wheat lying on the ground and said, "You are all surprised that so much flour came forth from the sheaves. Now where has any one of us ever been this surprised when he sowed a kernel into the ground, and soon saw 100-fold ear arise out of the one kernel? And still the first everyday wonder is greater than this double increase in flour, since it multiplies a single kernel 100-fold. If the 10 rich sheaves had given only 1 basket full of flour, no one would have been surprised at it, although 1 basket is as much of a wondrous gift of God as 2 baskets are. Thus also no one is surprised at 100-fold ear, because he is already used to this wonder. Now I ask if it is really right to consider God wonderful only there where he lets something unusual take place, when actually the ordered, usual occurrence is of much greater significance, since it at all times bears constant witness of this same infinite goodness, omnipotence, love, and wisdom of God. These words of James caused a great sensation. Everyone therefore praised the Lord for having given such wisdom to man. And the sons took the flour and began to prepare a good midday meal. Chapter 253. A Judgment for Wanton Destructiveness. In an hour, a good midday meal was ready, which consisted of 5 well-prepared fish and 14 honey cakes. For the honey was the only thing in the larder which was left by the thieves. Thus a good drink was also provided, which Joseph and Mary made with water and lemon juice and the addition of some honey. When the meal was ready and was served on the table, the sons of Joseph remembered to look for the eating utensils, namely knives, forks, and spoons, which in Joseph's house were generally made of wood. But these utensils of no actual value were not spared by the thieves either. And thus Joseph did indeed have the foods on the table, but not even the most essential eating utensils. Here Joseph went into the kitchen and asked the sons just what sort of a setting of the table that was, and how one could be so thoughtless as to put foods on the table without utensils. But the sons said, "Father, just look here, 1 frying pan, and 2 pots, and a single old and bent cooking spoon, 1 knife and 1 wooden fork have they left us. Everything else they have taken from us. Therefore, we must leave the milk standing in a single milk pot, because all the little cups are also gone." When Joseph had convinced himself of all this, he went back into the dining room with the sole cooking spoon, and with the 1 knife and with the 1 fork, and said to Jonathan, "There, brother, see, these are now our entire cooking utensils. Truly, that is wantonness, and that should be punished. I can understand a theft of valuable things and a theft when in need. But with this theft, neither one nor the other is the case. For here, criminal wantonness is very evident, and that the Lord should not leave unpunished." After this appraisal, all sat down at the table, and Joseph cut up the fish with the 1 knife, and placed a portion in front of each one with the 1 fork, and thus also distributed the honey cakes. And since the little child did not have his little bowl before him, he asked Joseph whether the little bowl had also been stolen. And Mary said, "Without a doubt, my dearest little Son of God, or it would surely be in front of you." Hereupon the little child declared, "Truly, Joseph is right. That was wantonness, and it shall also be punished at all times and in eternity. Whoever does evil and does not know it, he shall be taught, as well as he who does so when in need. But whoever knows the good, but still does evil merely for the sake of devilish wantonness, he is a devil from the pit of hell, and must be disciplined with fire." Thereupon each ate his portion with his bare hand. And just as they finished eating, a fearful howling was heard outside, which came from the thieves who had wantonly stolen the necessary kitchen utensils from Joseph's house in order to destroy them. Each thief was wound about with a glowing serpent and screamed for help. But the little child did not give ear to them, and drove them all, numbering about 100, into the sea by his omnipotence, where they all perished. This was the only time that the little child showed himself inexorable. Chapter 254. The Return of the Stolen Clothes. A short time afterward, a howling was again heard some distance away, as if coming from the city, and a number of people were to be seen hastening toward the villa. "What is going on again now?" Joseph asked of the surprised Jonathan. And the latter said, "That, like everything else, the Lord will surely know better than we both." And James said to them, "Do not make much of it, for those are the clothes thieves. The Lord's might has caught up with them, and they now are paying for their desecration against the hallowed clothes. For whoever puts them on or even touches them is immediately seized by an inward consuming fire. Therefore they now run about crying and lamenting, and will beg us to take these clothes out of their half-burned houses in the city. Now we are willing to help them, but the Lord will first warn these evildoers." James hardly finished speaking these words when the howling clothes thieves were already at Joseph's door. There they cried mightily for help and deliverance, whereupon Joseph went outside, accompanied by Jonathan. When he came out, 30 despairing men cried to him, "You almighty God Jupiter, help us and save us, for we have blasphemed against you since we did not recognize you." But now we have recognized you, so we beg you, kill us, or get the clothes belonging to your house out of our houses." Here, the little child came outside and warned, "Listen, you wicked thieves! As you have taken the clothes, so also bring them back here again. If you do not do that, death shall be your lot." When the thieves heard this, they cried, "That is the young god. Him we must obey, or we are lost." Then they all suddenly ran away and brought back all the stolen clothes on iron rods, for none could touch these clothes with their bare hands. When the clothes were returned, the little child let the thieves go and did not punish them any further. Here Joseph joyfully took the clothes back and carried them into the house. Chapter 255. The Inward Nobility of Mary. When Mary saw her clothes again, she was indeed glad, but at the same time she felt compassion toward those who had returned her clothes. For she thought by herself, "These have surely not received anything of the gold, therefore they took the poor clothes in their need. Now they will probably be faced with great poverty. Oh, if they were only here, I would gladly give them the clothes or enough money so they could obtain clothing with it for themselves." Here the little child went over to Mary and said, "Why, Mother, how beautiful you are today! If you knew how beautiful you are, you could easily become vain." Here Mary smiled and asked the little one who was caressing her, "Oh, my dearest Jesus, am I then not equally beautiful every day?" And the little child answered, "Oh yes, you are always very beautiful indeed, but sometimes you are still a little more beautiful. And today you are quite especially beautiful. Truly, you are now surrounded by 1,000 archangels, and each one wants to be the closest to you." Now Mary did not understand the words of the little child, and looked round about, whether any archangel was to be seen. But she discerned nothing except what was in the room, and therefore asked the little child, "Well, where then are the 1,000 archangels, since I am unable to see even one?" Here the little child replied, "You cannot be permitted to see one because you might become vain. But you are now so beautiful before all the angels of the heavens, because such a great feeling of pity for the sufferings of others has arisen in your heart, that it is nearly equal to mine. See, to bring a just and humane penance on one's enemies is fitting and proper, and shall always be so on the earth. But to wholeheartedly forgive one's enemies their guilt, and in addition do them good and bless them, see, that is purely divine. That can only be accomplished by the infinite power of divine love, for human love is too weak for that. And because you have just done this as God does it, you are now so beautiful, for God is at the above all greatest beauty, as well as the highest love. And now go and do what your heart desires, and my kingdom of love will become your own, like a royal inheritance, and you will be a queen therein forever." Here Mary promptly sent Jonathan after the thieves, whereupon he brought them back, and Mary richly meted out to them the money which Jonathan had given to her as well as to Joseph. Chapter 256. Joseph reproves the eminent citizens. This act of divine love caused the thieves to fall on their faces and cry out. Such kindness, such generosity is never a trait of men. Only the gods who never die can still reward their enemies. We deserved only punishment here for our great sin against you high gods. But instead of punishing us as we deserved, you reward and bless us for our evil deeds. Does that not make you gods? Yes, you are without doubt the highest lords of the heavens, for your deeds, the like of which we have never seen, bear witness to that. Therefore honour, praise and glory to you by all people on earth. And the power of all the princes of the earth shall bow eternally before your great splendour. Hereupon the thieves arose and went away filled with gratitude and esteem, and made this known in the whole city. And all the inhabitants quaked at such nearness of the gods, and went furtively about, and did not dare to work from sheer awe. Soon thereafter, the eminent citizens of Ostracene came to Joseph and asked him whether the story was really true, which the mob was now shouting about in the half-burned city. And Joseph answered, As concerns the good deed towards them, their shouting is correct, for thus my wife did in fact act against them. But that they hold us to be gods is a bad testimony for you who are great and wealthy. For thereby the poor mob characterizes your extreme hard-heartedness, since it sees nothing akin to godliness about you. Do as my wife did, and as my whole house does, and the mob will soon cease to hold the inhabitants of my house for gods. When the high and mighty of the city heard this to them very applicable talk of Joseph, they were greatly embarrassed, and went their way. And they were convinced that Joseph was merely an above all wise and good man, but for all that no God. From then on, Joseph's house was left in peace. And his family lived there another half year, without being molested, and was respected and esteemed by everyone. During this time, the little child worked no more wonders, and everyone lived there quite naturally. And Jonathan was more with Joseph than at home, for here was for him a most blessed existence. Chapter 257. The Departure from Egypt. About this time, the child slayer Herod died, and his son Archelaus succeeded him to the throne. This James told to Joseph and to Mary. Here Joseph asked James, I believe you, but how is that supposed to affect me? And James replied, That, Father, the Lord did not give me to tell you. But as the Lord heretofore has always shown you his will through the mouth of an angel, so will he also do now. For it would not be in the divine order that a son should dictate to his father what ways he should take. Here Joseph asked, Do you really suppose that the Lord will do this with me? And James said, Father, this is the way I just heard it within me. Even tonight I shall send my angel to you in a lucid dream, who will make my will known to you. And as he will declare it to you, so also shall you act promptly according to his word. When Joseph heard this from James, he went outside and prayed to God and thanked him for such advanced knowledge through the mouth of his son James. Joseph continued long in prayer, and only after 3 hours did he go into the house and to rest. And as he slept on his couch, giving his labour-weary limbs rest, there appeared to him in a dream the angel of the Lord, and said to him, Arise, take the little child and his mother, and go over into the land of Israel, for they who sought after the life of the little child have died. When Joseph heard this, he quickly arose and made this known to Mary. And Mary said, The Lord's will be done ever and always. But how is it that you speak only of us three? Are your children then to remain here? And Joseph answered, Oh, not at all, for what the angel said to me naturally includes my whole house. For thus the Lord also spoke to the prophets, as if he were dealing with them alone. But just the same, the Lord's words always concerned the whole house of Jacob. These words were understood by all, and the sons promptly went outside to put everything in order for their departure. But they returned full of surprise, for everything was already prepared for the departure. And for each person, a fully packed donkey was ready with all the essential needs for their journey. Joseph gave everything that remained to Jonathan, who was present here this night, then blessed him and told him to come to Nazareth in a year. And the little child also blessed him and kissed him. Jonathan wept at this sudden departure. And Joseph mounted the pack animals still long before sunrise, and thereupon made his departure by land.